On tonight's Gwinnett Prep Rally, the football season kicks off next week, and we're getting you ready with a preview of all 23 teams here in the county. In Region 8, the defending state champs will be tough to knock out of the top spot, but don't tell that to the Broncos, Falcons, and the rest of the region as they look to take down the Rams. After completing an unbeaten run through Region 7 for the third consecutive season, will North Gwinnett continue their domination, or can another squad step up and take the crown? Region realignment has stirred things up in the lower classifications with familiar faces in new places and the rebirth of a private school rivalry. Plus, we break down some of the top players you don't want to miss on the gridiron this fall as GPR is back on your television for the 20th consecutive season, and it starts right now.
For more than 15 years, your source for Gwinnett County sports is Gwinnett Prep Rally.
Football is back, and so is Gwinnett Prep Rally as we begin our 20th season covering Gwinnett County High School athletics. And we'll be right here every week on GCPS TV, where we'll give you all the football, basketball, soccer, and baseball action from Class 6A all the way down to Single A. I'm Todd Klein alongside Will Hammock from the Gwinnett Daily Post. And Will, summer's always a fun time of the year, but nothing beats high school football, and it should be another big season for the local teams.
Yeah, Gwinnett is great in a lot of sports, and I think high school football is right at the top as far as producing results and also getting people excited. I mean, people expect state championships, expect deep playoff runs in this area, and I think this year's no different.
Well, we will be previewing every football team in Gwinnett County on this week's show, and we begin with last year's playoff teams from Region 7. It's brought to you by Breda Pest Management, and we start off with the North Gwinnett Bulldogs.
In North Gwinnett, I mean, they put together an impressive run of double-digit wins under Coach Spire. I think that's going to continue this year. They've got another talented team. Maybe not as hyped as some of their other teams, but they're always going to play great defense. They're going to move the ball on offense. I think their defense is one of the underrated things about North Gwinnett, and I think they're going to do well again this season in that region. I look for them to be a playoff team. Certainly have a lot of talent.
And then obviously another school with a big pedigree is Peachtree Ridge.
Yeah, a little bit of a sour finish to them last season. They really beat up on Brookwood in that first-round playoff game. Somehow managed a way to lose the game with a lot of turnovers and big plays, but that offensive line's pretty good. Peachtree Ridge is always going to play great defense. They got a lot of playmakers, a lot of athletes, and I think you got to look for them to maybe be a region title contender this year.
And you talk about a perennial region title contender, Norcross is just that.
Yeah, I think for me, Norcross is probably the favorite in the region at this point. There's a lot of talent over there, a lot of skill guys, and they're bigger on the offensive line than they've ever been. I think a big key for them is having their skill guys back. Got Alvin Kamara, maybe the best running back in the state. Wilbur's a very good quarterback who throws the ball well and certainly has a lot of athletes to work with throwing the ball.
And then kind of finishing up with the playoff teams last year from Region 7, Collins Hill did a nice job making the postseason.
Yeah, I think they're going to be pretty good on the offensive side of the ball. Of course, good on defense too. Really, Coach Massey does a great job over there. But offensively, I think they're going to be a little better than last year. You got Brett Sheehan with another year of experience under his belt. He's an excellent quarterback. And Collins Hill, for some reason, always has a lot of playmakers at wide out and running back. And that's no different this season.
And Will, looking at those four teams, kind of figuring out who's going to be in the mix for the region title again this year. Talk about that North Gwinnett. Like you said, early on when Bob Spire came here, it was all about offense. But as we've learned over the years, they've really been a consistent team because of their defense.
Yeah, they really get after it. Coach Dixon does a great job with that defense over there. They certainly move the ball well on offense. They've had a lot of phenomenal offensive players, some big offensive linemen, but really defense gets it done. They really get after you on defense. They're always very quick on defense, and that's going to be the case again.
And then let's talk about Peachtree Ridge. Like you said, kind of went flat there at the end of the year. But what are you looking for on Peachtree Ridge this year as far as contending for the title?
I think Peachtree Ridge has the talent to contend. I mean, that's the main thing. They have enough players to contend with a team like Norcross. I mean, Norcross is so loaded with talent. Like I said, I think they're the clear-cut favorite. But I think Peachtree Ridge has the ability to step up and contend for that region title. I think those are the top two teams in the region at this point.
Well, we now continue with the rest of the teams in Region 7 that will be looking to break into the playoffs this season. It's brought to you by Nexstar Communication, and the Mill Creek Hawks are off to a tough start even before the big season starts.
Yeah, their quarterback situation was already kind of sketchy. They lost a guy in the preseason to an injury. Going to start a sophomore, Daniel David, at quarterback, but he's got some ability. I think just young. His main problem is he's young. He's a sophomore. He's going to have to replace a very good player in John Russ, but luckily he's got some good running backs back in the backfield with him and a pretty good defense.
And then we move over to Duluth.
Yeah, Duluth, Coach Jarvis has done a great job over there. I think he's really made some changes. I think the number one thing for Duluth is participation is way up from what it was in past seasons under Coach Jarvis. He's got the players out and excited. I think Miles Campbell, pound for pound, may be one of the best football players in Gwinnett County. He's an exciting returner. he can get a lot of things done. I think overall, I think they're going to be better on defense, even quicker on defense.
Then we move over to Mountain View, which will have a new coach this year.
Yeah, Doug Giacone, he's a guy that's been there from the start. He was an assistant to Coach Hardy, who went over to GAC, but Coach Giacone's a great guy. He knows his football, and like I said, he's been in that community. He knows what to expect, and they've really done a good job of building that community up and creating a community around that high school out of nothing. And I think they were a pretty good football team, too.
And then we'll move over to Meadow Creek. Any chance that there'll be a different outcome for the season this year for the Mustangs?
Yeah, Meadow Creek can't seem to catch a break. They lost a couple of their best players this summer, transferred over to Norcross, lost their offensive coordinator. I think just keeping anybody over there. The head coach, Dario Grimmage, he's a great guy. He just really needs some help. It's hard for him to keep coaches over there. They always want to go to other places, and it's hard for them to keep kids when they keep transferring like that.
I want to go back, Will, to Mill Creek. We talked about they've already suffered a little bit of a setback, but this is one program I think people are looking at. They think that they should be a region contender, should be a playoff contender at the very least. Is this the year they get back in the playoffs?
I think they can get back in the playoffs. I mean, Kelsey Griffin, the big defensive tackle, he's going to anchor that defense. I think they're going to be pretty good, pretty quick on defense. I think they're going to be better in the secondary than they've ever been. That's kind of been an Achilles heel in the past, is that secondary play. Offensively, I think they're going to be fine. A sophomore quarterback's okay when you have excellent running backs like they do, and certainly some wide receivers that can make some noise.
And with Mountain View being a newer program, obviously trying to get themselves assimilated at the highest level, how big of a deal is it Tim Hardy leaving, or the fact that the new coach has been a long-time member of that Mountain View staff? Are they going to be able to continue progressing forward?
I think they'll move forward. I think the transition's been pretty smooth. Obviously, Coach Giacone knows the way things have been done, and he had a big part in the way things have been done. So I think everything's going to be smooth over there. Certainly, they had a lot to build off of last season. Beating Mill Creek for the first time was a huge boost for that program.
Time now to turn our attention to the teams in Region 8. It's brought to you by Britt's Home Furnishing, and there will be a giant target on the defending state champion Grayson Rams all season long.
Yeah, when you have the nation's #1 player, you have the national ranking, the defending state champions. I mean, they have a pretty good winning streak going right now, so really a lot of focus on Grayson going in. They're going to have some tough early season games, and I think they're in a hard time with teams like Brookwood in the region. Really lost a lot on the offensive side of the ball. I think they're really going to miss Nick Schuessler a lot more than people might realize with his passing ability.
And we move over to Decula, which obviously had a great year last year, going 9-4.
Yeah, I think speaking of losing somebody that hurts, Rocky Capobianco did so much for that Decula team. That's going to make a big difference. So it's going to be the pressure on that guy Marcus Cox and Brandon Goodson at quarterback to kind of pick up that load offensively, because Rocky did so much to move that team, and he was our player of the year on offense, so that says a lot.
And then we move over to Brookwood, your alma mater. What's it look like for Brookwood this year?
I think Brookwood will be strong again. I think they're going to be good on offense. Jamal Cole's one of the more underrated players in the county. He's very quick, catches the ball well out of the backfield. Got a returning quarterback with experience in Zach Moon, so that definitely helps. And Sean McGee, a UGA commits on that, going to lead that defense, which is always pretty good on the defensive side of the ball.
And finally, the surprise team of last year, Archer, snuck into the playoffs. A really nice showing by the Archer team.
Yeah, there's a lot of talent over there. I don't think Archer's going to sneak up on anybody anymore. I think people realize there's a lot of college prospects, a lot of players over there. Antonio Riles is going to Florida, a big defensive lineman that's going to play a big role for those guys. But he's not alone. There's a lot of athletes on that Archer football team, and the next 2 or 3 years they're going to get even more.
Will, going back to talk about Grayson, obviously we know that there are a lot of expectations for them. We know they're going to be a strong defense. We know they're going to be a good team. In your mind, is it the offensive side, maybe particularly a quarterback, where Grayson's going to have to grow up really quickly?
Yeah, I think it's going to be different without Nick Schuessler back there. He's such a threat in the passing game. I mean, even in that Colquitt County game they won in the playoffs, he had to run the 2-minute offense and lead them down the field. Having a quarterback that can do that's good enough to play in the SEC and ACC, you can't lose that and just replace it very easily. So they have to be really stout running the ball and maybe take pressure off the new quarterback, obviously, but their defense is good enough that they're going to be a state title contender just based on the defensive side of the ball.
And the tough thing is when Grayson's in your region, it's going to be tough sledding for everybody. But Decula really had that great season last year. Do you think they can match up to that this season?
I think it's going to be tough. I mean, I think Decula can definitely be a playoff team. I don't look for them to be quite as good as last year. They lost so many seniors off that group, so many accomplished players. I think Decula's good, going to push for a playoff berth, probably be a playoff team, but it's going to be tough to match what they did last season.
Well, we assume that Grayson will be a playoff team this year, but several teams will be looking to grab one of the 4 playoff spots in Region 8. This is brought to you by Tommy Lee Carpets, and we start off with the Parkview Panthers, who missed the playoffs for the 2nd time in 3 years last season. They'll be itching to get back into the playoffs in 2012.
Yeah, you can never overlook Parkview, even with the talent pool kind of dwindling from what it once was when they were winning state championships, but they're still very well coached, very competitive, and they still have some good football players over there. So this is a team that they can maybe upset a few people and get into the playoffs. I know it's a team that expects to be in the playoffs, so you can look for that to be the goal this season.
Well, we move over to Shiloh. Will, obviously off-season was not what they would have liked, but they have a new coach and hopefully a new outlook over at Shiloh.
Yeah, it was a rough off season, but Coach Hobbs is the right guy for that job. He's a young guy. Came from North Gwinnett, so he knows how things are done the right way, and he's going to do it over there at Shiloh. He's young and energetic and excited to lead his own program. I think he's going to do great things for Shiloh and help turn that program around.
Then we move over on that end of the county, and we talk about South Gwinnett, which had kind of an uncharacteristic season last year.
Yeah, I think South Gwinnett's a team you're going to see being much improved this year. I mean, there's a lot of talent coming back, and I don't think any team in the county was hurt maybe by injuries more than South Gwinnett last year. They're really beat up throughout the season. If they stay healthy this year, I think they can play with anybody in the region.
Another interesting team to me is Central Gwinnett. Well, we know they're going to put the ball up in the air and probably cause some people some problems on defense. How do you look at the Central season?
Yeah, they have a lot of skilled players on offense. The quarterback, He-Man Westmoreland's back, so they're going to score points in bunches like they have the past couple of years. I think the big change for Central this year is they're going to be very good on defense. They hired a couple of coaches from Decula that are going to help out and really make them better on that side of the ball.
And then finally, let's talk about Bergmar coming off a 1-9 season.
Yeah, Bergmar's in a rough spot. I mean, they're very young and don't have a lot of players, so it's tough to match up in one of the state's best regions. I mean, this region has produced the last 2 state champions, but Bergmar's young and energetic. Coach Shanks has done a good job since he's been over there, so I think the Patriots will be fine. They're going to do well out of region, but they might have tough sledding when they get into region play.
And we talked about, Will, how top-heavy this region is. I mean, at the top of this region, there are some really hard hitters, so breaking into the playoffs is going to be tough for anybody. We talked about Parkview a little bit. Talk about South Gwinnett. Is there a particular player or part of the game that you think will improve this year to give the Comets a chance to sneak into one of those top 4 spots?
South, to me, is a little bit similar to Central because they're very explosive on offense. They've always had a lot of playmakers on that side of the ball. I think you're going to see them being a lot better on defense, and it helps to have Reggie Carter over there. He's a Georgia commitment linebacker who's a very good player. He's a guy that can really make an impact. He transferred last year and got hurt in the first game, tore his ACL. So not having him around last year certainly impacted the defense, and having a player like that on your defense is going to make it a lot better.
And we talk about that defense. I think we can all agree Central Gwinnett's offense is good. It causes people problems. It looks fun to watch in the game. Is their defense, can they upgrade it enough to make a concerted effort to be a playoff team?
I think so, and Coach Wofford made the point in the preseason, if you just improved it a little bit, they would have made the playoffs with all the points they scored, but they gave up 40 points a game. They had a stretch where they gave up 63, 56, and 49 in a 3-game span in region play, and you just can't do that. But really it was a matter of not necessarily the personnel, just the schemes weren't working out, and I think they have a guy, Coach Poitevin, the new defensive coordinator, who's going to do a great job over there and improve that defense greatly.
Well, Will, the GHSA moving to 6 classifications didn't have a huge impact on the biggest schools in Gwinnett County, but a lot has changed for the teams playing in the lower classifications. And we start off with the Buford Wolves, who will be moving up and playing in AAA this year.
Yeah, it'll be a different year for Buford. A lot of changes. Obviously, they had so many seniors on that team last year. Pretty much everybody that played graduated off that team. So a completely revamped Buford team, but you know how Buford is. There's a lot of talent waiting in the wings to play this year, and I think they're eager to prove that they can compete with some of the AAA teams in the state.
And then we move on to GAC. They're probably glad to see Buford move on to AAA.
Yeah, GAC finally for once in quite some time won't have Buford in the region, but definitely a lot to look forward to this season. Coach Hardy came over from Mountain View to lead the program. I think he's the perfect fit for that program. Not only a great football coach, but also a great guy who's going to do well in that community and really make a lot of friends over there. Already he's done well.
And Wesleyan, let's talk about where you think Wesleyan will be after not making the playoffs last year.
Yeah, Wesleyan will be interesting to see. They lost a lot of guys off their team also. It's going to be a very young team. They have a lot of freshmen on this team. But certainly it's a team that's well coached, and they have the quarterback back, Will Anderson, so that's a good start. He's one of the better quarterbacks in Gwinnett County. It'll be interesting to see how they do moving up to AA. They'll be in a region with GAC to kind of renew that rivalry.
And speaking of different regions, Lanier will be playing in 4 Quad A, so that'll be a little bit different. People will see some different teams that the Longhorns will be playing.
Yeah, they'll be playing a lot of schools that they're not really familiar with. I talked with Coach Wells in the preseason, and he said he really knows nothing at all about the teams that they're playing. It's going to take a lot of learning throughout the season, but they're excited because they get to play for something after playing like half JV schedule. They get to play for a playoff berth.
And then we talk about new programs. Hebron Christian continues to get started.
Yeah, they're trying to find their identity. They're kind of working their way to get to the point where those guys are to try and play for a playoff berth. But certainly they've made some great strides in their first few years of football. I think that you can look for that to continue this year. They do a great job over there, and I think the big thing with Hebron is the community. They really surrounded that football team and supported it.
Well, Will, when you talk about the non-6 Quad A or 6A schools, you have to talk about Buford. You already mentioned them a little bit. Moving up in class, some things are changing. Do you expect the mystique and the tradition to change it all over at Buford?
I don't think so. It might take them a year to kind of establish themselves, but I think they expect to win, they expect to make the playoffs, and they expect to push for a state championship. It's going to be very hard. They're really going to have to fight for it this year, obviously, with all those new faces out on the field that maybe haven't played as much on Friday nights. But there's a lot of talent there, and I think certainly expectations don't change when you're Buford.
Will, and then the other thing I'm really interested in is Lanier. We know in past years we've seen these schools grow up, and this is about the time where they start making some strides. We talked about them playing in a different classification. Playing it against those size schools, is Lanier in a position to really kind of make some hay this year? I
think so. I think you're seeing a very much improving team with Coach Wells over there. They're finally getting some talent coming through, guys. They're setting the standards higher for the players, and I think this is a year that they can make some noise, beat some teams in the region, and maybe surprise somebody and make the playoffs. They have that kind of talent. I talked to Coach Wells also, and they finally have some college coaches coming through. The Alabama coaches came through the other day to kind of put out feelers. So I mean that shows you that there are some younger players in that program who have talent, and they're on their way up to the varsity.
Well, we have talked about the team, so now it's time to focus on some of the standout individual players that hope to lead their squads to victory this fall. And we start with the #1 player in the entire nation, Grayson's Robert Kimdichie.
Yeah, definitely the most hyped player that we've seen in Gwinnett County ever. I mean, we thought Darius Walker got a lot of media attention, but Robert's just really overwhelmed everybody. Everybody's wanting to talk to him all the time. What's he going to do? He's committed to Clemson. An excellent football player. Really has impacted that offense more than you think he might, but on the defensive level, he's going to be a stud in college.
And you talk about on the offensive level, Alvin Kamara is really getting it done over at Norcross.
He hadn't picked a college yet. He's got a lot of great offers. I think he's a guy that can really get it done in a lot of ways. I think his value, especially in these college offenses the way they are these days, is he's almost like a receiver. He catches the ball so well out of the backfield. Certainly an excellent running back, but I think his versatility and the way he can catch the ball is a big benefit.
And then we talked about Central's defense. If it's going to be an improvement, this guy, Trey Johnson, is going to be a big part of it.
Yeah, he's an excellent football player, really a big-time hitter. Always seems to find the football. He's a lot like Rennie Curran used to be. You can always expect to see him around the football. He never quits. He's always chasing it down all over the field, and that's why he's been able to rack up so many tackles the last couple of years. Going to Auburn, so he's got to be a great guy.
Well, Will, we didn't talk a lot about Parkview earlier, but if you were to discount them, that would be to discount this guy, Chris Carson, and there's no reason to do that. He's a big-time player, and I think because of that, Parkview's going to be a team to deal with.
Yeah, he really carried the load for Parkview last year, and I think you can expect more of the same this year. He's an excellent football player. Also a lot like Kamara, he catches the ball well out of the backfield, and I think that's why you're seeing him with so many offers right now.
And then we go back to North. We talk about some defense. You think about quarterback play over there, but Donnie Miles makes you think a lot about the running game.
Yeah, Donnie Miles is an excellent player, has been for the last couple of years for North Gwinnett, and I think that's not going to change. He's a guy that's a tremendous football player on the offensive side of the ball, obviously, but I think he's a good defensive back, too. I think that's going to be his future home at college. He's going to be an excellent defensive back at UNC.
Well, Will, these are all great players for great teams. You've been out there doing previews, getting ready for the big football tab for the Gwinnett Daily Post. Anybody that's kind of got on your radar that's not on this list that deserves a little bit of mention?
I think over at Brookwood, Kai Priester's a wide receiver that's made a huge difference over there for Brookwood. I mean, you knew Jamal Cole was going to be good at running back and Moon was going to be good at quarterback, but to bring in a wide receiver who was previously committed to Georgia, he's decommitted now, but an exciting wide receiver with that kind of ability, it doesn't come through Brookwood too often, so it'll be interesting to see how they are able to use him.
Time now for Will's World. We put 60 seconds on the clock. We get into the mind of our very own Will Hammock, and it's brought to you by Nexstar Communications. What do you have for us this week, Will?
We touched on him briefly earlier. Miles Campbell, I think pound for pound, one of the most exciting players in Gwinnett County. His coach said he's pound for pound one of the best players he's ever coached. Really just does so many things for that offense. They're going to hand the ball to him. They're going to throw it to him. And in the return game, there's not a more dangerous player in Gwinnett County. He strikes fear into opposing coaches. With what he's been able to do in that return game, he'd be heavily recruited if he wasn't just 5'6". And the second thing we're going to talk about, Mikey Tamburo from North Gwinnett. He's a guy that really went to Boise State, thought he was going to play there. Transferred back to Georgia, and he ended up getting hurt, tore his knee up twice. And so Georgia's given an opportunity now to coach. He's given up his football playing career, but I think he's going to be a great football coach one of these days. Obviously a great football mind, and he's getting a lot of great learning experience up at UGA. Olympic Games, we had that going for us here, and it was heavily involved for Gwinnett. Maya Moore, Amanda Weir, and Eric Chanteau. 3 locals all won Olympic medals at the games, which is pretty impressive for one county to do that. And really for Maya, played for a dominant women's basketball team in the U.S., winning gold. Eric won a gold, and then of course Amanda won a bronze to go with her 2 silvers from a previous Olympics.
And Will, we'll talk plenty about football in the upcoming weeks, but hitting on the Olympics, every 4 years we get into the spirit, watch it. I just wondered personally, having covered these kids and knowing them personally and to know 3 medal winners, kind of what that made you feel as a spectator watching this on TV.
It's very neat. I mean, like most people, I was a big fan of the Olympics growing up watching it. Did I ever think I would be personally friends with an Olympian? Probably not growing up. And I mean, it's pretty cool to see like Amanda Weir, or somebody that you've seen, Maya Moore, who was a freshman in high school when you met him for the first time, just to see him grow up and see him accomplish such great things. I always say it's almost like a teacher. You get to see somebody grow up and accomplish these great feats. So it was very exciting for me.
Yeah, congratulations to all the Olympians. We had several others from Gwinnett County that actually made the Olympics. So, all right, that's going to do it this week for week 1 of GPR. Be sure to join us next week for more highlights and features with a full slate of action from the Georgia Dome. You can see Gwinnett Prep Rally every Tuesday through Friday right here on GCPS TV, and you can go to GwinnettPrepRally.com for all the scheduling details. For Will Hammock and all of us here at GPR, I'm Todd Klein. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you under the lights.
Grab some wood there, bub.